Did it.
She sure is.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's going to be me today. So,
Right?
good morning, everybody. Just want to give you a quick introduction for our training today. We have Robby T from Hatch Coaching. Robby T is one of Eric Hatch's top coaches, and he's going to go over some lead conversion techniques with us today. So, Robby, we're happy to have you joining us. Robby's set over 4,000 appointments over the last 4 years. So you guys are going to want to pay close attention to what he has to say today.
Yeah. And so Robby and I met a few years ago. And for those of you that know, obviously my relationship with Eric Hatch too, I actually met Robby first and then met Eric, and all that came about. But the way that I met him was I had some questions when we were building our ISA team, and he so politely just started helping us. Like, didn't ask for any money, you just were like diving all in and helping us. But when I tell you guys, he is the master of lead conversion. He truly is the master of lead conversion. So everybody take notes. If you don't have your cameras on, y'all look pretty on your photos that I'm seeing popping on here. Please get your cameras on so we can see eyeballs. And I'm super excited to have you. So Robby, I'll let you take it from here.
Well, Siri, I appreciate the kind words and your positive energy and love always exudes, and I really appreciate it. I'm gonna cut myself down. Like, I'm just a normal guy who geeks out about lead conversion because I'm a nerd like that. And but I want to give you all a little more background on me so you know who you're talking to. First off, it's really weird. I should probably change my name. It says I'm Robby Trefethrin. We're gonna go change that.
If anybody has glasses, put them on. Let's all like
geek out. That's right.
Yeah, let's all do it together. That'll be fun.
I like it. So I always joke I go by Robby T because my last name is Trefethrin, and it sounds like a pharmaceutical drug with all the problems and none of the money. I've been in this real estate game for almost a decade now, coming up on 10 years. It's been my bread and butter. And when I got into the game, I was an inside sales agent. Any ISAs in here by chance? Any of my people? Dang it. Okay. If you ever call leads, if you ever have to create and generate business in real estate, raise your hand. Okay, cool. I see a lot more ISAs. You're all ISAs. ISAs, essentially, when I talk about it, it's going and creating business. And I think there's two primary ways you can create business. There's creating business with your PCSOI, like your friends, family, past clients. That's this circle over here. And then the other circle are not met. It's people that don't know you. They don't give a shit about you. They don't like you. None of it. And I was the person as an ISA that was the psychopath. I was like, nah, I don't want to chase my friends, family, and sphere. I'm going to go play this game. That's what I did. Essentially, as an ISA, I played boots on the ground for 2.5 years, and I've had the honor and privilege of coaching and training ISAs at the highest levels now for 7 years, essentially. But before we get into that, I think my story begins in a very unlikely place, which is political campaigns. And y'all, I just got to tell you one simple truth, that if you think salespeople are unpopular, I promise you there's one thing that's less popular, and it's political campaign worker. I worked in this thing called field organizing. Anybody know what field organizing is? All right, if you ever had somebody knock your door and ask who you're voting for, I was that asshole. I was that guy. And my whole job was to reach out and have conversations to identify who people wanted to vote for, and then to persuade people to vote for our candidates, and then get out the vote. You probably heard of GOTV, right? And what's really interesting is everything that I want to teach today, the first place I put into practice was politics. By the way, I see someone's out at a beach, I think, today. I'm very jealous. That's not fair. We should switch lives for a minute. Anyways, so I was working on these political campaigns as the first place that I started. Now, it's really interesting because when I first got into the game, when I was chasing company leads, when I first got into this, I was handed a script book. I was told, hey, follow these scripts, follow this advice. Here's what you need to be saying. Anybody else experience something like this? Here's your scripts. All right, get ready for it, y'all. I'm a big believer that all those script books need to be thrown in the trash and lit on fire. They're almost always trash. When I started working on political campaigns, it was the same thing. When I started working on the campaign, I was given a book and I was told, hey, go knock people's doors. And here's the 3 talking points about why people should vote for our candidate. Sound familiar? Here's the talking points, the things that you need to do to get people to work with you as a real estate agent. And I just want you all to guess, when I started knocking people's doorsteps and I said, hey, I'm Robby with blank and blank political campaign, and I just want to find out who you want to vote for this year. How do you think that conversation went?
Not good.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
I got called.
Depends who you were voting for.
Yeah, true. So even then, even the people that were loyal were like, get the out of here, bro. Especially when I would try telling them on why they should vote for our candidate. In other words, what I found is that approach of trying to sell people on myself or the candidate was backfiring. What happened was a divide was being created. And that's what we've been taught, is like, we need to go earn people's business by making sure they know how wonderful and pretty and great we are. And y'all, I'm here to tell you that nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares that you matter this much and that they matter this much. You see, what's really interesting is when I was knocking those doors and my whole intent was try to sell them on our candidates and why they should vote for them, what happened was people literally spit on me. This was pre-COVID days where spitting then became really offensive. Doors were slammed in my face. I was called every single cuss word you can think of. I had guns pointed at me. You name it, it happened. And I'm not the smartest person. I always tell people that I'm really not that smart, but when that happens enough, you're like, I can't tolerate this shit anymore. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take all that. I'm going to throw it out the window. And I happened to read a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Anyone ever read that by Stephen Covey before? All right. There's a habit in there called seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I think it was the foundation of everything I'm teaching. And what I realized when I went up to people's doorsteps is I needed to inverse everything I was doing. I needed to quit selling myself to people. I needed to sell myself on them. So what happened was I started going up to people's doorsteps and I said, hey, Ashley, or hey, Jennifer, or hey, I'm just out here with blank and blank political party. And I just wanted to find out, what are some things that you care about this election? And guess what people always did? They always gave some surface level bullshit answer. Something like, well, I care about smaller schools, or I don't know, I care about blah, 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 or whatever the political opinion that they had. And then what I did was I heard it and I said, well, tell me more about that. And guess what the problem became? What I learned, y'all, was that the script, tell me more, led to them not shutting up. They would talk and talk and talk. And next thing you know, they're telling me all about their kids and how their class sizes really suck, their teachers suck, or they don't have free milk, or whatever their story may be. What happened was they started telling me things that mattered to them. And lo and behold, by the way, in politics, what I found is that almost always there's far more middle ground and common ground than ground where we are apart. And they're like, okay, Robby, cool. That sounds great, man. What does this have to do with real estate? Well, when I got into real estate, like I said, I was handed a script book. I was told, call and try to tell them why they should work with us, why we're so great. And what do you think happened to me on the phones or when I door knocked people? Resistance, hung up on me. No, thank you. Get out of here. And what I found was I had to inverse it. I had to instead make them the center of the conversation. And it's where I learned, I think, the best question you can ask, which is, hey, Siri, I saw that you were checking out some homes on one of our websites. And I just wanted to see if you were just kind of looking for fun, or to see if you plan on making a move sometime soon. And how do you think people respond to that, y'all? What reactions do you get? What responses do you get?
Well, they tell you one way or the other.
They sometimes say, yeah, I need to buy a house right now. Those are usually the really desperate people, which aren't the best opportunities, but yes, it happens sometimes. Or what's the other alternative? What do they say? I was just looking for fun, right? What's really funny about this is, y'all, that's a normal response. Think about this. Who in here's bought a car recently? Raise your hand. All right, George.
Yep.
When you're walking into the car dealership, when that first salesperson walked up to them, were you like, hey, I'm buying this car, I want to do this right now? Or when they said, hey, what brought you out today? Did you say, oh, we're just checking things out, we're looking for fun?
Exactly that.
All right. Even though you probably had 100% and you left that place buying a car, like you were 100% committed potentially to buying a vehicle, yet you put up resistance. Y'all, this shit is normal. Resistance from leads and clients is normal. Can we all agree on that?
100%.
But there's one big problem. Starting in April 2020 through April 2022, what happened? April 2020 through April 2022, what happened?
The market went bonkers.
The market went bonkers. And what happened to resistance from leads or clients?
There was hardly any.
It disappeared. It dissipated. And the simple reason is that, of course, money was unbelievably cheap. There was free money everywhere. You get stimulus. You get stimulus. Oh, rates. Oh, let's cut it down to 3%. Or for some of us, you'd even get in at 2.5%. The house I live in is locked in at 2.5%. That's stupid. That makes no damn sense. But the market completely evaporated resistance. So even if they were afraid of you, the salesperson, it disappeared. And then what happened was, for 2 years, we were playing this game where nobody had any objections. Nobody had any resistance. Yeah. Nobody was saying, I'm just looking for fun. They were saying, I need to buy a house right now and I don't give a shit what it costs. Yo, that's stupid. Ain't it? That's dumb as hell. I hope we never go back to that. And if you're hoping to go back to that market, I have a really, really tough thing to tell you. It's probably never going to happen again. It took the global pandemic shutting down the economy of the world that led to unprecedented federal stimulus, and we'll never likely see it again, or at least not anytime soon. Things aren't going to get easier, y'all. And what's really funny is then we went from a game where no resistance to holy shit, interest rates are 7%. Oh my God, they're talking about the R word, recession. We went from literally unbridled optimism to insane pessimism like that, right? And hey, you all are still here, so you're doing something right. Proud of you guys. There's a lot of people, they out, they gone. They're broke. They're working part-time at Home Depot. And part-time became full-time. But what we need to recognize is, as I reflected on it, even if you were good at handling objections, even if you were good at handling resistance from people, what happens to muscle if you don't use it for 2 years?
Atrophy.
Atrophy. And that's what I've realized over this last year. So many people are like, oh my God, this is so hard. This is so frustrating. This market's insane. Things are really tough. And I'm sitting here saying, no, it's fucking not. This is normal. This is normal. By all accounts, the market we're in is normal. Resistance is normal. And what happened was people didn't want to acknowledge that, and then they keep blaming, they get frustrated, they blame the president, they blame the Fed, they talk about rates, they point the fingers, they say something needs to change. I'm like, no. You just suck and you need to change. And what I'm going to teach you all today are some very, very simple ways you can handle resistance. But number one is we have to recognize that resistance is normal. George walking into the car dealership and having resistance, that's normal. And wanting that to disappear is a fool's errand. What do great people do? And so you see what I talk about with resistance is resistance comes from one simple place. Okay, I want everybody to write this down. Resistance comes from fear. Okay. And typically, people fear two primary things, which creates resistance. One is the market or the economic climate. Now, we're starting to turn a corner, but people are still kind of nervous about it. So they can be fearful of the market. Here's how you hear fear of the market. Rates. The market's going to crash. Anybody have that? Where clients are like, oh my gosh, the market's going to crash. These prices make no sense. Things are going to crash. Prices have to come down. This is 2007, 2008 all over again. Y'all hearing this stuff? That's economic fear coming through, right? And then the second form of fear is fear of you. I've always made the argument that Jesus, the salesperson, gets hung up on. You could be the best human being in the world, but the moment you put your sales hat on, people have a distaste for you. My favorite example of this is there was a book written by Dan Pink that's all about To Sell is Human. That's the name of the book. And what's interesting is he had taken a poll of the top words to describe salespeople. And here were the top 5 words: hardworking, kind, caring, I'm fucking with you. You see, the words that are used to describe salespeople are sleazy, gross, manipulative, annoying. You see what I'm getting at here? Is that people naturally fear salespeople. And you know what it is that they actually fear is not the person itself. George, when that person walked up to you, they could have been the kindest person. They could have been Jesus, Mother Teresa, whoever you look up to. And you still would have feared them. And there's one reason why. We fear salespeople because we're afraid of buying something or doing something that we'll end up regretting.
You want to hear something funny on that? So
yeah.
The salesy people that came to me, I didn't end up buying the car off that person.
Of course not.
One of the salespeople that saw me walking around literally told me, "Do you know what you want?" And I said, "Yes." She took me to the table and I signed the papers.
I think this is the North Star I've realized in sales is the moment we stop selling ourselves or trying to sell something, and the more we try to sell ourselves on them of what does George want, what does he want, what is he looking for, the moment we make others the North Star of our conversation, resistance fades. Now, there's a double-edged sword of this. Because, George, you knew you were going to buy a car, despite the economic climate, despite whatever rate you maybe bought it. I don't know if you paid cash or not, but you knew you were doing this. But the way to overcome fear of the salesperson is to put George and his needs, wants, and desires at the center, the epicenter of the conversation. Just like when I was working political campaigns, it was, George, what matters to you this election? But there's a problem here is when the economic climate is a little fearful, you start hearing things like, well, I don't know if I want to do something with the rates today. I think I want to wait till the market crashes. I want to wait till the market goes down. I want to wait till Joe Biden's not my president anymore. All this shit, right? And it's really interesting because I see people handle it in one of 4 ways. You're all going to want to write these 4 things down. Number 1, you believe them. Someone says, I'm going to wait till the market crashes. And you're like, all right, sounds great. I'll follow up then. Y'all, that's stupid. Really stupid. And it's really stupid because they're talking to you, the salesperson. They're pulling out every reason why they wouldn't want to do something, and they're putting it in front of you. It feels really big to them. Second thing, and this one's going to hit a few of you between the eyes right now. You ready for it? You debate them. Here's what I mean by debate them. You try to tell them that they're all wrong or dumb, and you might think that you're doing it in a very tactful way. You may think you are, but you immediately like, well, actually, rates are pretty great compared to the 1980s. And they don't give a shit. And there's one reason why. I've always said this, that you could give a TED talk of the most factual information in the world, but it does not matter. And it's interesting, Mike, you said never argue with fools. I would argue never argue with unregulated individuals, because people are unregulated. Because that's what emotions are, huh? That's what fear is. What we need to recognize is them having resistance and fear of the market is the exact same thing as your toddler being unregulated about not getting a toy. It's the exact same core fucking feelings. They're afraid of something. Y'all, how does logic work when people are afraid? It doesn't. You see, what happens is you can have all the logic in the world, but if somebody's emotionally unregulated, you are wasting your time. Your TED Talk is wasted. You can be saying all the right things, but you're saying them at the wrong time. And that's what I see so many people doing is we try debating them. We try telling them, and you can be saying exactly statistical fact. This isn't 2008. That shit's fucking stupid. This isn't, right? Rates aren't bad compared to the 80s. Like you could be saying all these things, but y'all, they don't hear it. If anything, guess what happens? Y'all ever been in a political debate before? How much does logic matter? You see, what happens is naturally when you start pushing this way, when they're afraid, guess what they want to do? Push back. So they resist your resistance. Number 3. You use my 3 favorite words in the book, which is tell me more. But it backfires. You see, tell me more is the idea that if somebody says, I want rates to go down, you say something, well, help me understand that better. Or, what do you mean by that? Or, I want a different president. You ask them to give you more information. And y'all, it's really, really funny because I love tell me more when it's about their needs, wants, or desires. I think it's one of the best scripts in the book. It's really a mindset. But if George says he wants to buy a house, if I think tell me more, focus on the opportunities, one of the best things you can do. You say tell me more to the opportunity he wants to do over and over and over again. One of the best things you can do. But the moment you use tell me more with resistance, guess what it begets? More resistance. Because literally people's brains, and this is where my background in political science and politics really comes into play, is 99.9% of all the conversations about politics aren't at all logical. They're not rational. It's just as emotional teams saying shit to each other and fighting. That's all they're doing. This is a guy that worked political campaigns. I'm sorry. But that's just the way it is. You see, what happens when we use tell me more, when they have resistance, there's something called confirmation bias. And what it really means is their brain doesn't look for disconfirming information when we're feeling unregulated. It looks only for confirming information, only for thoughts or ideas that support our argument. This is also why debating doesn't work. When you say, tell me more, what happens is they think of all the reasons, and it doesn't matter how legitimate they are or not. Then they think of all the reasons why the world's about to end. And what happens when they start thinking those reasons? They start thinking about crappy interest rates. They think more about why they think the market's going to crash because their crazy uncle said it. What happens is the fear grows. You guys see this? And what happens when fear grows is resistance grows. And when resistance grows, people don't want to take action. They fight back. Strategy number 4. This is the only thing I've ever seen work in sales when people have resistance. It's something I call the art of the pivot. You see, the art of the pivot has 2 core functions. The first part is acknowledging what somebody has said. You can't ignore it. When someone says that they don't want to buy a house because of interest rates, if you just ignore it, you come across like you're not hearing them. And when you don't hear someone, it makes them more uncomfortable, which creates more resistance. Now, acknowledging, to be very, very clear, does not mean to repeat it or rephrase it. It means to acknowledge it. Because y'all, I don't want to rephrase the stupid shit they just told me. I don't want to repeat it. I'm not doing that. But acknowledging is something like, all right, Siri, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. You see that? It's making someone feel heard. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm not repeating it. I'm not paying it any energy. I'm just simply saying, I hear you. And then this is probably the simplest but most brilliant thing that great salespeople do is they refocus on the opportunity. And almost always in sales, it's what was motivating you to potentially move in the first place. You see, what most of us do is that when people bring up resistance, what we do is we shine the light on the resistance, right? We focus that. We got to handle that. We got to fight that objection. That's fucking stupid. It actually causes them to become more and more and more unregulated. What you need to do is you need to make them feel calm and safe. So instead, got it, Siri. So I appreciate you sharing that with me, but help me understand, what had you interested in real estate to begin with? George, you put it really, really well. That salesperson said, well, what brought you out today? What are you looking for? And the moment you do this, here's what happens is people will say things because they're still a little nervous about you. They're still a little afraid. And do you blame them? They don't know you. They don't care about you. Again, they're afraid of the market and of being sold something they don't want. So what happens, they respond like, well, we were thinking about getting a bigger home, but we just don't think the timing is right. So what happens? I want everybody to just break this down. Write that phrase down. Yeah, we want to get a bigger home, but we just don't think the timing is right because we think the market's going to crash. So what happens is they give you a little bit of an opportunity connected to resistance. You guys see that? This is the simplest thing I can teach you all is don't pay attention to the resistance. When people give you both, pour all your light and your energy into looking at the opportunity. The opportunity is bigger home. Got it, George. So you said a bigger home. Tell me about that. What do you mean by that? And then next thing you know, people don't shut the hell up. Y'all, that was the moment for me when I was working political campaigns that what matters to you this election, George? And next thing you know, they say, well, I don't know. Politics is not something I really like, but classroom sizes, I guess you could say. There's opportunity there and resistance. Brilliant sales people ignore the resistance. And here's what happens. Think about this. People are looking to buy and sell for emotional reasons always. Who here's bought a house in the last year or two? Anyone? All right. If you bought a house in the last year or two, you were either, I guarantee you, and tell me if I'm wrong, you were either running towards something or away from something or both that had emotion tied to it. Now, for some of us, it's, I needed a bigger home because baby's on the way. Emotional. The fear of feeling cramped in their current space. Let's take something that's extremely logical, which is, I'm renting right now and I don't want to waste money on rent anymore. You guys ever hear stuff like this? Absolutely. It's emotional. What's the emotion behind that? I'm sick and tired of wasting my money on rent. Here's what's fascinating, y'all, is the more you focus on them, their motivation, what they're hoping to do, their needs, wants, and desires, the more you use, tell me more about the opportunity, the emotion regarding the motivation grows. It's at the forefront of their mind. And here's what's really, really fascinating is it's really tough for us as humans to hold competing emotions at the same time. So what happens, y'all, is we're actually moving people from an unregulated place where people are afraid of the market, they're afraid of you, to a conversation where they feel safe about you and making a decision and having a conversation. And next thing you know, the fear that's being discussed or the emotions being discussed are the opportunity of, man, I really want a bigger home because I want to do more entertaining. Or we want a bigger backyard for our kids. Or we need the space because my mother-in-law is moving in with us. What happens, y'all, is that grows. And now there's the emotion there. And y'all, logic makes us think and emotion makes us act. You see, I believe that we have to keep digging in and asking, tell me more, until we can seek the clarity of the emotion of what is driving somebody to go and do something. I'm going to pick on George. George, what was driving you to get a vehicle?
I needed a hybrid because I drive too much.
Okay, tell me about that. Why was that necessary for you?
I was spending too much money in gas.
When you're saying too much money, help me understand that a little bit better.
I wanted to cut back so that I could spend money on other things.
Okay. How much money were you roughly spending per month?
Around $500.
Oof. And how is getting a hybrid helping you solve this? What's it doing for you?
Yeah, so it's giving me more mileage, and I don't have to fill up as much.
Okay. So you all see that I just tell me more of the shit out of them there.
Yeah.
You see, what I've realized is I'm not there to judge whatever George says. My job is to find out what are the key things that matter to George. But let's talk about the very last thing that we got to hit on today, which is you can go down this path. You can engage in a conversation like we've talked about. You can find out all the reasons that somebody wants to do something, whether it's buying a car, buying a house. And then they go home sometimes and they have a conversation with their mom or dad, or they see something on the news, or they run some numbers, and then they get cold feet. And what's really, really interesting is I believe that the more you do the work on the front end to find out what's driving them, the more ammunition you have for when they get cold feet, because getting cold feet is normal. Again, for 2 years, we didn't think so. We completely forgot about it. Getting cold feet is normal. You do it. I do it. It happens. When we hear or see scary things, we get cold feet. But what brilliant salespeople do is they take what they learned in the beginning and they do this crazy thing when people get cold feet. You reflect back why they were doing something to begin with. In this car example, I'd say, well, George, I know it was really, really important for you to not spend $500 a month on gas. and I can sense some hesitation. Has that changed? Or is that still a problem you want to go and solve? You see, when you reflect those things back, what you need to realize is there is no script for this, right? And even if there is, no script will be more powerful than George's own words. The thing that's going to motivate George the most, or Jennifer, or Siri, or Mike, will be themselves. So for me, what I've learned is that the best salespeople just simply do everything they can to dig deep into what is motivating somebody to make a move so I can clearly understand it. And when people encounter resistance, I'm going to ask, what's changed? You see, what most people do is they try fighting back, or they try saying you should do this, or rates could go up, or prices are going to keep going up. And you try using that logic. And again, they're unregulated. Humans become unregulated. Get used to it. We're fucking emotional psychopath creatures, y'all. And what we do when we ask what's changed is almost always they either provide clarity, and sometimes I always separate. There are emotional objections and there's conditions. Okay, everybody should separate those two things. Everything we've talked about to this point is an emotional objection, right? Sometimes there are conditions. So if I ask George what's changed, he's like, man, honestly, I just got laid off from my job. Y'all, that's not an objection. What is that? A condition. That's just a reality. There's nothing you can do. And one of the biggest things that we have to accept in sales is you can do everything right and things will go wrong. Right? You can do everything right and things will go wrong. And what I found is that what you have to do is when I ask a question like, well, I know it was really important to you, George, to get a bigger home because your family's growing. And I know I can sense some resistance. Help me understand what's changed. Or I'll ask, is that still important to you? Is solving that problem, getting more space, really important to you? And what I'm going to do is create clarity. And what I'm going to focus on is, again, when they answer and respond, I'm going to try going down the path of opportunity. Now, I will end with this, and I probably should have started here. I'm an absolute firm believer that in order for any of this to work at its highest level in the short term and long term, you have to let go of the attachment to the outcome. What I mean by that is you need to not care whether George buys a car or not. You need to care or not care whether Mike sells his home or buys a home or not. We have to let go of that attachment, because what happens when we're subconsciously attached is we push and we sell and we get sales breath. And people avoid salespeople. It's what George did. George, you said it. You avoided those 2 or 3 or whatever people that were trying to sell you some shit you didn't want. You literally probably ran the other way. And it's the other person that's like, dumbasses, I'm going to go ask George what he wants to do. Well, y'all, what we need to realize is we get to do the same shit in our world. Can we all just agree that most of our industry sucks? Especially in your market? I'm going to pick on California for 1 minute, okay? I'm going to pick on California, primarily because y'all have sunshine and it's beautiful all the time and all that fun stuff. But I'm going to pick on you for a moment. I'm going to pick on you because you are the only market, maybe you, Seattle, yeah, probably just you guys, where it is normal to sell 1 home a year and think that's cool. You are the only goddamn place on the face of the earth that thinks it's cool to take the most expensive purchase of somebody's life or most biggest sale of somebody's life and say, hey, go do it once in a year. I think that's normal. That's fucking stupid. And what I think you all need to think about is Anytime people go work with people like that, that's your fault. Truly. You need to take it on, and you need to be thinking. By the way, a little funny thing is we probably should have started this and done a drinking game every time I said the F-bomb, because some people would be really lit right now. But anyways, sidebar. What we need to recognize is that when we're pushing and we're selling and we're going down these paths, we're actually pushing people away, but you all need to take this on. And there's a guy I love and respect, he's in your backyard, or was, I should say. A man named Kobe Bryant. Any Kobe fans in here? And y'all, it's really interesting because Kobe on and off the court was two different human beings. So much to the point that he literally created an alter ego known as Black. And what I think I've encouraged all my coaching clients and people to do is you need to take on this alter ego of being Superman or Superwoman. That a part of our jobs as A players in this game is we need to do everything we can to rescue people from going and working with these JV, selling one home, 2 homes a year. Because you all, as I said earlier, how good are you at something if you do it once a year? You're trash. It's not good. It's not a good experience. But we have to do everything in our power to go have uncomfortable conversations with people, to start calling leads, calling our friends. When people choose not to work with you, that's your fault, and taking extreme ownership over it. And when you pair this with not being attached to the outcome, because I think at the core of this, the North Star of everything you should do from this point forward should always be, you will always do what is in the absolute best interest of your clients. Even if that means you advocating that they don't make a move. And there's some people that struggle with that. They're like, but I want to sell homes. I want to make money. I'm like, you're dumb. Because in the short term, you might get one extra sale. In the long term, it will get you one hell of a bad review. And what's so interesting and what I love about today is that your reputation can be torn down in literally 2 seconds if you treat people that way. And there's still, like, it's funny because as I've reflected on this, I think a lot of the old school mentality in sales, like always be closing. You guys remember that shit? Like sell, push, get them closed, sell them. That stuff permeated when the salespeople had 100% control of everything. It was when people didn't have options. There was no accountability. And then along came the internet in the late 90s. And what's happened is it's given more and more and more and more power to the consumer and taking it from the salespeople. And thank fucking God for it. Because people that treat people poorly should be held accountable. People that push people to do something that's not in their best interest, they shouldn't get business. And what I love about today is that the interests have to be aligned. So I want you to write this down. I'm a firm believer that always be closing is dead. And the new ABCs of sales are always be curious, connecting, and collaborating. If I were to shorten it, it's always be collaborating. You see, collaborating believes that you are working with someone else towards a common goal. That's what collaboration is. Closing is saying that I have all this power over this person. I'm going to close them. As an antiquated point of view. If you walk away from today, I think there's a couple of key things that I want you to hear. Let go of the attachment to the outcome. Put people's needs, wants, and desires at the absolute center of your conversations. And keep digging in deeper until they say, I can't think of anything else. People always ask me this, when should I stop asking, tell me more about why they want to do something? I'm like, until they say they can't think of anything else. And what you'll recognize is this usually goes 5, 6 layers deep, just like in the conversation with George. Sure, he wants to get a hybrid. That's number 1, right? Motivation. Number 2 is, tell me more about that. And then he says, well, I was just spending a lot of money. Well, that doesn't really tell me anything, right? And until I get to the point that he's spending $500, and actually I could have kept going. You know, if you save that money, what do you plan on doing with it? Tell me more, right? Tell me more is not just tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. It's a mindset. And the more you do that, the more you understand what is actually driving somebody to do something. And then you take that and you reflect that back when things get scary or tough. Because isn't that what coaching is? Isn't that what collaborating with someone is? It's accepting that sometimes things are scary. And it's not making them feel shame or stupid for thinking that. That's normal. Those are normal things to feel as a human. What helps us is somebody who doesn't judge it or try pushing us away from it, but they try to understand if that's still important to me. Simply put, when you're curious and you connect and you collaborate, really what actually happens is you create a lot of clarity about what people want to go and do. And when there's clarity, resistance fades. Or when resistance comes up and there's clarity, you remind them of why this matters in the first place. Is this making sense? My last thing is, again, take on the alter ego. Our jobs are to go rescue people, especially for you all and people in your market. There's so many people that work with jokers. And that's not their fault. You see, when I was in ISA, I took on that. I created like this. Kobe had Black Mamba and I have Robby T. It's really funny because you take this hat off, I collect Pokemon cards, I'd play video games. Like that's how I roll. But I've created this persona that shows up despite fucking hate publicly speaking, who shows up and has conversations. I have a God-given gift to go and share these things with the world. It's what I'm being called to go and do, but it's my alter ego. So my question is, what is yours? And for me, it all started like the beginnings of this in real estate was when I would call and have conversations with leads. And I'd call and have conversations with expired listings or canceled listings, people that had their real estate experience end with another agent. And what I consistently heard was horror stories, nightmares. I kept hearing things that were just honestly unfathomable. And then I took it on of like, and I got to go rescue these people. I got to go make these calls. I got to go have these conversations. Is it fun? Fuck no. But did it help? Absolutely. And then the final thing I'll simply name is that you don't have to hit 100% to be the best. It's really funny because if you guys chase any like pay-per-click leads, the best in the game convert about 3 to 5%. If you're chasing a property inquiry lead, like a Zillow lead, the best in the game convert at 20%. My point behind that, the thing that nobody talks about is the best in the game are converting 20%. That means that they strike out 80% of the time, yeah? It's crazy math, isn't it? With PPC leads, the best in the game convert at 30 or 3 to 5%. That means that they strike out 95% of the time. And what we need to realize is striking out is normal. And so many people in this game, they avoid those striking out, or they have these unrealistic expectations of I got to hit 90% of the time. And that would be no different than a baseball player saying, I suck at baseball because I bat 400. Bro, if you bat 400 in baseball, you're a goddamn legend. And what we have to recognize is we have to have these realistic thoughts and ideas of going and being the best in the game. And what comes with that is you can do everything right and you still won't win sometimes. That's just a part of the game. There's so many variables that go beyond you. No matter how damn good a conversation you guys have, you can take everything I just taught you and have the best conversation with a lead. And then they find out that their best friend just got the real estate license. Shit happens, y'all. And there's nothing you can do about it. So You gotta create an alter ego. You gotta create a mission. You gotta create a why. You gotta put people at the center of the conversations. For me, I have a calling to redefine the way people treat people. And this is how you can do it. It's a win for them. It's a win for you. And actually, I think this is one of the highest forms of love you can give people. That's all I got. What questions you guys got with the remaining time today, if any?
How many of you guys want to just go on and make some phone calls? Get in front of people, right? Annabelle, I saw you smiling. Belly, Mike, I know you got it. Seriously. Yeah, what questions you guys have for Robby? Like I love the chat going on too. How inspired are you guys with all this?
Yeah, that was really
What's
good
some,
stuff.
yeah, Mike,
Before Jen and I decided to get our real estate licenses, we obviously worked with a lot of realtors shooting photos for them, and we ran across a few that were happy with the 1 to 2 listings or escrows a year. And I always ask myself, I'm like, why would you limit yourself? There's just, especially in California, you feel like the pie is plentiful and the sky is the limit. And so that was just one thing that always struck me as like odd, like, what the heck? Why would you limit yourself? That's kind of whack. So, yeah.
I'll give you my theory on why. Because you're one of the very few places that you can sell 1 or 2 homes and make really stupid money.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. Okay.
Yeah.
You see in the United States that for some reason there's a barometer of like, you made it when you make $100,000. And what's so interesting is making $100,000 in Fargo is much different than making $100,000 in San Diego. But what's so freaking hilarious is when I look at people and them in the pursuit of doing something, what I've seen is a lot of people stop once they get comfortable. And I'll be very honest, if like one of the biggest things that I teach people to do is we underestimate how comfortable we are. We don't sit down and think big picture enough about why we need to be doing the work that we're doing. And I'm not saying that you should make sacrifices and never spend time with your family or kids. I think you can absolutely in this game create balance either through leverage or through boundaries. Okay. I see people do it all the time. I know people, one of my favorite coaching clients, one of my best friends is a guy named Patrick Keller, who's in Indianapolis. Okay. He'll sell 170 homes this year himself. And I bet you probably has a lot more balanced life than most agents selling 12 homes a year. What it really comes down to though, is people get extremely comfortable because they haven't thought about, man, like one of my favorite questions to ask anybody in real estate is, what's your exit strategy? And you know what most people think? Think about most people we know in real estate. What's the exit strategy? Keep slanging home till I'm dead. So I think you need to be thinking like, what's my exit strategy? In order for you to have an exit strategy, you have to invest in income producing assets, better IPA, not beer IPA, but IPAs, income producing assets. Also, y'all, this world can be fucking ruthless. Are you prepared for it? Again, I always tell people, you're not being creative or imaginative enough of how fucking comfortable you are. And there's some gratitude, like have gratitude for that, but also prepare that this world can change. Things can change. It's why 95% of Americans can't weather 6 months without income. That's scary. It's why most people don't have an exit strategy. They got to work forever. So my thing I challenge people to go and do is sit back and ask yourself, what's my exit strategy? What amount of income producing assets do I need to invest in? And the next thing you know, you create this vision of what is the total amount of money that you make to pay your taxes, because Americans forget about the T word, paying taxes, especially in real estate, to live the life that you're currently living and to make the investments in IPAs so at someday you can check the hell out. Like for me, I'm out 2038. I'm gone, y'all, if I want. I'm done. Actually, I'm on pace. I could do it today. But that's besides the point. For me, about 3 years ago, I got really, really focused on 2038. And for me, it was, I'm willing to play this game I'm playing through 2038 because that's my last year here in Fargo. I'm out of this fucking place when my daughter's done with school. I'm gone. All right, I'm out.
Are you coming to San Diego? Where are you going?
I'm gonna be a nomad, y'all. I'm gonna be all over the place. I won't live in San Diego because y'all taxes suck and I make way too much passive income and get screwed on taxes. I would live there, but just have my house in Fargo. But I love, like, my favorite place on the face of the earth is Big Sur, which isn't too far from y'all. I think it's one of the best places, most magical places on earth.
RV life.
RV life, right? Exactly. What's up, Rich? Good to see you, buddy.
How are you?
Good, dude. My point behind that is, are you thinking about these things and are you aligning your goals and your income goals to actually fulfill it? And then on top of that, you got insurance, right? If you're single, who gives a shit? You don't need it. Me, what happens if something shitty happens to me today? Kobe Bryant was the best example of, even to the most well-protected, wealthy, affluent, everything, crazy shit happens. And are you prepared for that? And I can say, I've just made that a really big focus of, I've been creative about how ruthless the world can be so it doesn't catch me off guard. And what's really cool is that I then can use the vehicle of helping other people to help get a little bit of mine so I can go do those things and make those investments and protect myself. So sitting down and slowing down and thinking, why do I do this in the first place? All right, what are the questions before I get running?
I think one other question we had here is if when they've been ghosted.
Oh yeah, great question.
How do you not come off as not annoying?
So first off, what's the number one reason people ghost you?
You were salesy from the beginning.
Cold feet.
Nope.
Persistence.
Siri, you ever ghosted Rich before? Rich, you ever ghosted Siri before? Forgot to text each other back?
Who?
You get busy. You forget. You mean
the number one reason people ghost you is they forget. Here's a really good example is we are a part of a place called Place. And I texted a guy named Brian, who's more like the top 3 at Place. And he said he was going to respond to me and forgot to. And didn't respond for 48 hours. So I sent what I call a nudge. And nudge is simply like, hey, just want to make sure you saw this. Or ask another question in the same realm to nudge it to the top of their inbox. And of course, guess how he responded? I was going to read it to you because I think it illustrates such a really great point. Dude, I'm so sorry. It's been a crazy past 48 hours. Was Brian bad? Was Brian a bad person for that? No. He's human. And we live with this crazy ass thing, which in addition to all of life, this thing has billions of freaking notifications that pull us in so many different ways. The number one reason people forget to text you back or reach back out to you or respond to you is not cold feet. It's they're human and they forgot. Now, the second big thing, of course, there is resistance. There is some fear. There is something. But the biggest thing that I've learned to do is you just got to nudge things to the top of the inbox. That is the number one way that you can stop the majority of the ghosting that takes place, is you just remind them that you were there. The other big thing is they need to know it's okay for them to tell you shitty news. So something like, George, I know plans can change all the time. I just wanted to check in and see where your mind is at. People don't like telling you that plans have changed or that they lost a job or that there's some shameful information or that they're no longer going to do something or that they bought a house at an open house. Because wouldn't you rather know it? So what I've learned is you need to give permission to to tell you negative information without judgment. And by doing so, almost always people are willing to respond. And then finally, my last thing, and then I got to run because kids are being crazy outside my door, is there's a text that I use. It's called the alien text. And it's the dumbest damn thing I've ever created, but it works really, really well. And it simply says something like, hey, George, I know that we were talking a little bit ago and you're thinking about making a move. I've reached out a few times and I haven't heard anything back. That tells me one of three things. One, you're no longer interested in making a move. Two, you're still interested, but you've been too busy to respond. Or three, you're abducted by aliens. And in that case, let me know so I can reach out to Elon Musk or NASA or whatever to schedule a rescue mission. And it is shocking the amount of people that just respond to that have been ghosting you. And probably 80% of the time, it's something has changed. Some shitty thing has happened. But 20% of the time, it's, I've just been way, way, way too busy. I know it's the dumbest thing. If you don't like that version, there's two other versions I've created. One is you're lost, and it's like you're on an island. Extra points if you use a GIF. So like with the aliens one, we use the Toy Story aliens. With a lost, we use an island of the guy on Lost with SOS on an island. So it's like you're stranded on an island. Or another one is you're stuck in line at your local DMV. And in that case, let me know so I can come and rescue you. And then it's if you ever seen Zootopia, we use the GIF of the sloth slowly stamping something. So the whole point is it just seems human and humanize it. And I think that really just, a lot of us take it personally, like, oh my God, I must have offended them. And until they've told you that you've offended them, you probably didn't offend them. It's
That's
just
good.
what happens. So.
You know, for me at times, you know, like you'll get like let's just say 4 or 5 texts that come through at once. You open them all up, you look at them, and you reply to 2 of them, and then you get caught up on those 2 back and forth. And then you put your phone down, you take off, you go do something, get the kids, whatever it is, come back, doing all your stuff throughout the day, going through everything at night. And then you look and you're like, oh shit, I forgot to text those 2 people. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's exactly it. It's exactly what happens. All right, Siri, Rich, y'all, good seeing you. Let's do it again.
Good to see you, Robby.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
coming.
Thanks, Robby. That was awesome.
You're very
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
Yeah.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.